Okay, so part of the reason for this part of the conversation was that once someone that you trained told me that allergies are actually a symptom of underlying pathology. And as you clear out some of the underlying pathology, the allergies start to go away, which is totally mind blowing to me from the conventional perspective. Because from the conventional perspective, allergies are just you're screwed. Like that's where you are unless you take basically unless you take allergy shots. And so yeah, I'm very curious to hear what Ayurveda's view on allergies are, and in your experience, as someone gets healthier, what happens to their allergies?
Yeah, so allergies from the Ayurvedic perspective really are signs and symptoms of something else deeper brewing in the body. And so they are the indicators that something more is probably going to come. They're very important to pay attention to, but what we'll find is that we can actually not only control them, but we can really get rid of them if we follow the right diet and lifestyle for an individual and get them aligned to what their body actually needs in terms of nutrition, and avoid creating internal waste as part of the digestive process. Once we clean most of that stuff up, the body doesn't have anything, or it doesn't have as much to react to anymore. And so allergies often decrease significantly.
Wow, okay. And how long does that period of time normally take? Is that like a several year process, several month process?
It really depends on a number of factors. The age of the individual, the amount of waste already built up in their system, and the amount of waste coming into their system on a regular basis. Let's take a couple examples. If we get somebody who's 25 or under, and they've been mostly healthy throughout their life, but they've started to notice some allergies creeping in, say over the last 5 or 10 years, they probably don't have a heavy load built up because they're still young. And so as long as we can really get them to control their intake and reduce the incoming load, what we find is that we can actually neutralize whatever remains with the right Ayurvedic formulations, and their body's probably going to recover pretty quickly. So it may only be a matter of weeks. Sometimes it's as little as a few days, but yeah, there are definitely people who are on the other end of that spectrum, and it can take maybe a whole year, 2 years, for them to notice significant changes in that. But that won't be the only thing they notice changes in. They're also going to notice other major improvements in their health across the board.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. One thing I'm curious about is that a lot of people use over-the-counter drugs as short-term remedies for dampening the symptoms of allergies, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on that as an effective or ineffective way to deal with allergies.
Yeah, unfortunately, what those things tend to do is they gather up this waste that the body is reacting to, and they store it away somewhere in the system. And so rather than actually getting over the problem and correcting it, they're just kicking the problem down the street for later, like kicking a can down the street for later. So the person's most likely going to experience some kind of immediate improvement, and they'll think, hey, the symptoms are gone, that's great, the problem must be gone. Unfortunately, that's a very naive way to look at it, because rather than getting rid of the problem, we've just wrapped it up in wrapping paper and saved it away for later as a present to open up and become more of a problem 5 or 10 years maybe down the line.
I see. Okay. And I'm curious about two things. I'll ask the first thing. Like, where does that perspective come from? Like, where did you learn that?
Well, so the concept of storing waste in the body is not an Ayurveda only concept. Western medicine also understands, modern science also understands that fat, adipose tissue, has the propensity to store waste internally. And so this actually goes a step beyond that in Ayurvedic medicine, because not only are physical waste being stored, typically mostly in the liver, but also really in any of the adipose tissue, especially in the gut, the adipose tissue that pads the digestive system organs. Not only can physical waste be stored up in that, but in my experience what I've seen is a lot of people also have emotional waste stored in that as well. And so when we go through very deep system cleaning using panchakarma, we basically change the fat storage mechanisms in the body and help flush the fat system and reset metabolism. So in that process, the kinds of signs and symptoms that people experience are often all related to old symptoms that they had. And they'll come to me and they'll say, oh, I used to take this over-the-counter medicine because I had this very same problem, and now here it is again showing up. Or these emotions are coming out of nowhere. I don't understand. This is something that, I had to deal with however many decades ago, and it was kind of an unresolved, hidden, packed away problem. And so there's a great book out there called The Body Keeps a Score, and that really describes this phenomenon wonderfully. So that is the concept on which we're working with to try to clean old waste and all these old products out of the body.
That's extremely interesting because it also links the reason why Ayurveda uses fats like ghee, medicated fats, to go and do this detoxification process, because it takes up all the lipid-soluble waste and toxic byproducts are sitting inside the body and detoxes them.
Exactly. Fat is the only medium capable of getting into fat. And so we can't use water. Water will not get into the waste products that are stored in fat in the body.
That makes a lot of sense. And then I guess the obvious follow-up question is, what's a healthier way to deal with allergies than over-the-counter medication?
So back to your first question about fasting, probably the body is responding to an excess of problems, excess of waste material built up probably by overeating, maybe by eating the wrong combinations of foods, maybe by eating at the wrong time. Any of these can be a direct cause and trigger. So the better thing to do is to try to get the body to digest the excess first and bring the load of internal waste down and see if that hyperactive response also calms down.
Got it. Okay. Very helpful. A much more holistic perspective. Very nice. All right. Thank you. This makes a lot of sense.
Great.